everyone. Welcome back to another episode of AKP Sports Talk. It's kind of crazy. It's already I think our 27th episode, so I feel like we just started, but we're flowing through these Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes. Today's April 18th. As always, I'm Ari here with Korea. How was your weekend, Korea?
It was fun. Obviously, a lot of action in both the NBA, obviously MLB. Another weekend of baseball. And then we're getting near the draft, which is kind of crazy that it's already pretty much next Friday and Thursday, so it's just right around the corner. So I'm excited for that. But great weekend. How was yours?
Yeah, it was fun. Lots of fun sporting events. We had the debut of the USFL this past weekend, which I watched a couple minutes of, but not too much. But yeah, we're going to kind of dive into a little bit of everything between MLB, NBA, and NFL today. We'll start off just with the NBA playoffs, and we'll kind of go in order of the games. So we'll start off with the Utah-Dallas. Utah takes game one of that series at Dallas. Luka sidelined, and you could tell Dallas is clearly, missing Luka big time. But they still kept it close for most of the game. Mitchell struggled in the first half for Utah, but Bogdanovich had, I think, 20 points in the first half, so he kept them in the game. And then Mitchell found his groove in the second half. And then, for Dallas, they went 9-32 from three, so that definitely hurt them. Brunson and Dinwiddie had pretty good games, not super efficient games, but they had 46 together. But, you could just tell that Dallas was just kind of missing that one star player that they were missing. But I mean, they still kept it close throughout the game. So, Korea, what were your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I knew this was going to be a competitive series. You mentioned the loss of Luka. That was obviously going to be a big factor for Dallas. And it proved to be evident Dallas could not hit a single shot. I mean, you mentioned how close this game was. It's only a 6-point game at the end of the day because of the shooting struggles for Donovan Mitchell and the Utah Jazz in the first half. And then all of a sudden they just picked it up. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell finished with 32. Good game for him. Obviously, that second half was big for him. But the loss of Luka Doncic for game one, and I think they've already ruled him out for game two, if I'm not mistaken. So that's two home games where you need your star shooting guard and you don't have him. So that's definitely going to be a big loss. Potentially, if it goes to maybe 5, we'll see him there. But yeah, I think this is going to be a more competitive series than I thought it would be. I thought obviously Utah would have a little more comfortability in this game. Now that Dallas did not have Luka for game one, but obviously game two is tonight, and I'm excited to see how Dallas will kind of rebound against Utah, considering Dallas just could not hit a shot. I think that will be this maybe a new story today, but I mean, you mentioned the dominance of Donovan Mitchell in the second half. Utah's got to find a way to not only get him involved, but obviously Gobert, Bogdanovic. They're those key role players. They got to get them more involved if they want to have a chance at the series. Because I mean, the 6-point win without Luka, that's not really that great when you really think about it. So I think they got to get more players involved. And you see the score right there. It's kind of crazy to say, but that's a low-scoring game now. It's didn't even get to 100. So yeah, I think for game one, I think it was just kind of seeing how the pace of the game will go. I think that tonight's game between Utah and Dallas will be a lot more telling. I think we're going to really see how Dallas will respond without Luka for game two, and what Utah will do to feed Gobert more, not just have the ball in Mitchell's hands and rely on him a lot more. But game one was pretty interesting to watch, just to see how Utah would manage without Dallas having Luka. And so I still think the series will definitely go to 7. Obviously, it's only game one, and I mentioned game 2 is tonight. But I'm excited to see how Utah can handle it, because I mentioned you have Dallas in 7, and I have Utah in 7. So if Utah can, get more of those role players involved, I think they can, maybe even make this to 6 or 5, considering Luka will have to, make some magic and come back. But in terms of this win, I think this is more of a kind of a win for Dallas, because, still keeping it competitive without their star guy. That's all you really can ask for at this point in the playoffs. So I think this was more telling that Utah needs some more work to do than Dallas.
Yeah, you mentioned game 2 is tonight, so we'll see if Utah can kind of take a commanding 2-0 lead, or if Dallas can. I don't want to say steal one because they're at home, but it's kind of steal one because they're missing Luka. So Yeah, I think Utah was a 4 or 5 point favorite last I saw, which sounds about right. Considering that was game one, roughly. But yeah, I mean Dallas is gonna definitely need. I mean Brunson didn't really play as well as they could have. I feel like because there's a lot more pressure on them, with Luka off the court. But definitely gonna need um, those two step up again, and they're super scrappy, so they're gonna need to, I think double Mitchell a lot to kind of try to get the ball of his hands. And I mean, if a guy like Bogdanovich beats you, there's only so much you can do at that point. But we'll see if Dallas can tie it up or if Utah can take the 2-0 lead in the series. So now we'll go over to one of the more exciting games on Saturday, right? Yeah, Saturday. Minnesota taking game one, stealing game one at Memphis. Super high scoring. Cat stepped up 29 points after his struggle in the play-in. Anthony Edwards was unstoppable again, 36 points. Malik Beasley had 23 off the bench. Russell struggled 2-11, but I mean, when you have someone like Beasley stepping up for 23, that kind of makes up for the loss of Russell struggling. And then I mean, for Memphis draw, did his thing in 32. Dylan Brooks at 24. Jaren Jackson was kind of in foul trouble for most of the game, so he didn't do too much. But I don't know. It just seemed like Minnesota, they had more guys step up, it seemed like, because for Memphis, I mean, other than draw, I mean, Brooks doesn't normally give you 24, so I guess he stepped up. But it seemed like top to bottom, Minnesota kind of played a little bit harder. Anthony Edwards was talking about how he was always getting kind of trash talked by the Memphis fans, and that kind of raises his game. So you have that. And then, I mean, Minnesota hit 16 threes, and Memphis hit 7 threes. So that's 27 more points off threes for Minnesota, which is obviously more than the difference in the game, with Minnesota winning by 13. I mean, you're not going to win many games giving up 130. So I think it's really just about defense stepping up for Memphis, because 117 should be at least a close game, but they kind of got blown out on their home court, giving up 130. So Crew, I think we both have Memphis in 5, I believe. Are you? I mean, I guess are you a little less confident in that after game one, or kind of? I guess how much are you reacting over one game?
It's one game. It is game one. I think Minnesota kind of wanted, set the tone. Obviously, all the memes about Minnesota, acting like they just won the title and all that stuff in their playing game. A lot of people were just saying, "Oh yeah, Memphis is going to easily run through them," and I think they use that as fuel to win that game one. You mentioned just the shooting for Memphis. I mean, you had 23 off the bench from Malik Beasley too for Minnesota. Not Memphis, Minnesota. Yeah, I meant Minnesota. Malik Beasley had 23 off the bench. McDaniels had a nice 15. It just shows. I mean, obviously this is the number one scoring team in the league, and they just came out and proved that. I mean, you mentioned Karl Anthony Towns, that big rebound game from his playing game where his pretty much D'Lo and Anthony Edwards saved him. He put up a nice 29 and 13. So that was something we were really looking for. Can Karl Anthony Towns really step up? And he really did for them. And then also Anthony Edwards, leading scorer, 36. 6 assists and 2 rebounds. I mean, that's just Anthony Edwards. He's the number one pick for a reason. He's doing his thing. But I'm not too concerned for Memphis. I just think they need to have a little more of a defensive adjustment. And obviously, they just weren't hitting the shots. I mean, Jaren Jackson went 0 for 5 from 3. He usually is more consistent from behind the arc. Went 4 of 13 from the field. Same for John Morant. He went 0 for 2 from behind 3, 8 of 18 from the field. And he still dropped 32, but still 8 of 18, which is very good. And then obviously you mentioned Dylan Brooks, who stepped up, but still like 7 of 14. He hit 50% of his shots, which you can't blame him, which is all you kind of want in the game. But, I think it's just more of a decent defensive adjustment. Also, shout out Brandon Clark, Gonzaga product, came off the bench for Memphis, dropped 13 and 12 with 6 and 7 shooting. So I'm not too concerned for Memphis right now. I just think, Minnesota, it's just I think the John Morant, Anthony Edwards, you want the smoke come with the Chindy thing that John Morant said. I think Anthony Edwards just met them there. And I think Minnesota just came out with more intensity. I saw a lot of people talking about how Memphis kind of got punched in the face or like slapped in the face in this game. And I think that was it's just a little bit of a wake-up call for Memphis, because obviously Minnesota is not no easy challenge, number one offensive team in pretty much the country in terms of basketball. So I think game 2 will be a lot more different. And obviously I think you're going to use Steven Adams a lot more, because Adams didn't even score a single point in that game one. So I think they're going to use a lot more of, a lot more of Steven Adams, finding him down low. But it'll be an interesting matchup with Karl-Anthony Towns. Maybe get him in foul trouble again. I think that may be a story for game 2, which is tomorrow. I'm not too concerned for Memphis, but shout out to Minnesota for stealing one on the road. So that was definitely a big one, especially since we had them both winning at home, and they're in probably game 3 or 4 or whatever. So that was definitely a big win for Minnesota to steal it on the road. I'm not really too concerned about Memphis, but I think they just need to have a defensive event heading into game 2 tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with all of that. I was going to say, not just less about getting Adams to score, but more about getting Cat in foul trouble, because when Cat's on the floor and, he hits the ball at the top of the key, Adams, Cat can either blow by him or Adams give him space and he hits a 3 wide open. So definitely getting Cat in foul trouble would be huge for Memphis. And yeah, I agree. It's definitely a wake-up call for them, but maybe they wouldn't stick it to the 5 now, but I still think, Memphis takes the series at the end. So now we'll go into the next game. Philly blows out the Raptors. Definitely. And not only does the Raptors get blown out, but they lose Scotty Barnes and now Gary Trent, who's not playing, and Thaddeus Young, who's not, as much of a difference maker as the other 2, but still 3 rotation players who are going to be out game 2. So it looked like Barnes might have broken his ankle when Embiid stepped on it. It sounds like he avoided that. But now Philly looks to take a 2-0 lead tonight. They just dominated the game. Tyrese Maxey, 38. Tobias Harris had 26. Those 2, I think, were the 2 leading scorers over Harden and Embiid. And then Toronto, they just had, their guys like Fred VanVleet had 18. Barnes had 15. I think he had 10 early. He had 10 the first quarter. And then they had Anunoby step up with 20 and Siakam with 24. But it just seemed like Philly was the more confident team early. It seemed like Barnes was the most confident player for Toronto early, and he's a rookie, obviously. So that was kind of weird to see. This Toronto team has been in the playoffs before. So, we'll see if Philly can take a 2-0 lead, which you would think they should crush them. Toronto's depth isn't there. So without Trent and Barnes tonight, I don't even know who's going to start for Trent, because they barely played any guards off the bench. So it's Malachi Flynn maybe, but he only played 3 minutes in game 1. And then you got Boucher, who might come in for Scotty Barnes, or maybe they keep him off the bench. So it'll be interesting to see what the rotation is for Toronto, a depleted Toronto team heading into tonight. But if they go down 2-0 heading back home, if they can get these guys back, then I think they can still get back in the series. But was it kind of what you expected, or did even Philly surprise you a little bit with how much they won by and dominated?
The biggest surprise of that game was Tyrese Maxey. No one expected him to just go off. He had 38 points, great shooting day for him. He was making pretty much everything that he could. He went 14 of 20 from the field, 5-8 from 3. He was making everything. So I didn't expect Tyrese Maxey to step up the way he did over the MVP favorite in Joel Embiid and James Harden, who can shoot the lights out on any given night. So that was nice to see, these rising stars, kind of step up. And also on the other side, you can mention on the other side of the ball as well with Scotty Barnes, kind of being that lead guy for this Toronto team throughout the early part before he got injured. And now you mentioned Toronto was really depleted. No Trent, no Young, and now no Scotty Barnes for this game tonight. So it will definitely be a big factor for Toronto to try and overcome all 3 of those losses for game 2. I already checked the line. Philly's already a 7.5 point favorite, so they're just saying Philly is definitely gonna win very comfortably tonight. But I gotta say, just the shooting day for Philly proved to be too evident. When you go 51% from the field and 50% from 3, you're just making everything. Philly won very comfortably. You saw one by 20, and then obviously Toronto shot pretty well too. When you shoot 48%, that's a good game, but it just not defensively. They just couldn't stop Philly, and that's pretty much the story of game 1. Just couldn't stop Philly offensively. They were just having fun. You see Tobias Harris top 26. pretty much every single starter dropped double digits, almost 20. Every single starter drops almost 20 points or more, except for Danny Green, who, Danny Green. but but I mean, it shows you just how talented these top four guys are, in Harden, Embiid, Maxey, and Harris. When option A doesn't work, they go to Tyrese Maxey for maybe option B, or option C, James Harden, or option D, Tobias Harris. So it'll be interesting to see how Toronto will adjust now down three key members of that rotation now for game 2 tonight. But it's not looking too bright for Toronto right now. Hopefully, you mentioned game 3. Hopefully they can get some momentum back and those key guys back. And also game 3, no Thibault for Philadelphia, so maybe that could be big. He only played about 20 minutes in yesterday's game. We'll see how he plays tonight. Not yesterday, Saturday's game. He only played 20 minutes in Saturdays, but we'll see how much time he gets tonight. But maybe it'll be a bigger factor than we really think for game 3 in Toronto. But for now, it's not looking too bright for tonight's game. But hey, I've seen stranger things. So, but yeah, great game for Philadelphia offensively. They just hit all their shots. So if you're Toronto, you're going to need VanVleet to pretty much have the game of his life, along with maybe Siakam. Precious is definitely going to get a lot of playing time now that Scotty Barnes is not, definitely not in the starting lineup tonight. And you mentioned, I don't even know what the starting lineup for Toronto is tonight, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. You mentioned Malachi Flynn, who, didn't really get that much playing time. And so for Toronto, it's definitely going to be a lot of adjustments. And for Philly, I just keep shooting the ball well, continuing tonight in game 2.
Yeah, I mean, for Toronto at this point, it's less about winning game 2 and more about getting healthy, heading back home for games 3 and 4. I mean, Barnes' injury looked really bad at first glance, so I'd be a little bit surprised if he plays game 3. But as someone who picked Toronto, I hope I'm wrong and he does play game 3. But we'll see if magic can happen tonight and Toronto can somehow. I mean, even if Toronto keeps it close, I feel like that's kind of a momentum builder in a way heading back home if they can get. I mean, Gary Trent's just a non-COVID illness, so I would assume that he'll be back for game 3. Barnes is more of a question mark, and then Thaddeus Young, he's just more of a rotation depth kind of player. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
It is a quick turnaround though, because game 3 is on Wednesday, so hopefully. It's not all the way down Thursday or Friday. So yeah. Game 3 is on Wednesday. So if you're Toronto right now, you got to hope and pray that in these next 48 hours that Scotty Barnes and Thaddeus Young can make some good recoveries. You mentioned Gary Trent, and it's a non-COVID, so he'll probably be healthy by Wednesday. But maybe a quick turnaround may not be good for Toronto heading into game 3, which will be on Wednesday.
And again, you never know with illnesses these days. So, so now we'll get into probably your favorite game of the first round. I'll give you the floor here. What were your takeaways from the Warriors' pretty dominant win over Denver?
I mean, there's one name on this box score that I want to talk about, and I've talked about it. He's out of Michigan, Jordan Poole. I said this man has to step up in the playoffs, and what did he do? He did exactly that. 30 points, 9 of 13 shooting, 7 of 8 from the line. This is what we needed. A lot of people were questioning as to why Jordan Poole was in the lineup over Curry. I said I knew Stephen Curry was going to get some restricted minutes, but I said this is Jordan Poole's time to really show himself on a national stage, and he's been doing that all season, and he just kept doing it again. He just shot the lights out. Klay Thompson had a decent game. Wiggins had a decent game. I mean, all of our starters got double digits. Steph Curry, 16 off the bench. I mean, I can't really complain. And now Steph Curry is getting healthy and healthier. So offensively, I was pleased with how we were shooting the ball. 52% from the field, 45% from 3. That nice playoff atmosphere. We haven't had that in San Francisco or Golden State for a little while now. So it was nice to see the Warrior faithful just out there. We're supporting this team. Jordan Poole also 5 of 7 from 3, so he was hitting his threes as well. And we forgot to mention Steph Curry hit half of his threes as well. Only played 22 minutes, put up 16 points. I mean, for Denver, it's not concerning, but I mean, they just need help. I mean, when you see just how talented this Warriors team is, with Denver, they just need like they need an MPJ or Jamal Murray back, and obviously Jamal Murray that's been a year since he's been playing, obviously with that torn ACL in the playoffs, or was that in the regular season? I forgot when that torn ACL was for Jamal Murray. Was that in the regular season? Or I think it was right before the season ended. But
I don't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, but anyways, there's the loss of Jamal Murray is showing because they only went 31% from three. They're not really hitting their shots. Jokic didn't even hit a single three, but he hit 12 of 25. He scored 25 points, but and Will Barton, he put up 24 as well, but I think they just need a little more help from the whole team. Obviously, holistic thing. Aaron Gordon only went 3 of 10, and then just the team didn't really play. Monte Morris, also the other starter, he only got 1. He only got 4 of 9. So, and then obviously the bench didn't really contribute that much. Most contribute they had is really Bones Highland, and he had 10 points off the bench, 4 of 10. So I think Denver, they're a little bit of trouble. Obviously, they can't rely on Jokic to score 50 points every game, but it just shows that this series may go to 6 or maybe 5, just because Stephen Curry, he's not even fully healthy yet, and Steph can probably just easily go into that lineup potentially tonight for Game 2 because he was shooting the lights out. So if I'm Denver, I'm a little nervous for sure with the talent of this Warriors team. But they have to depend on their role players alongside Jokic, the MVP favorite as well. So obviously great game for the Warriors. Maybe a little more defense from the Warriors side. But when you have, and also one of their big losses, Campazzo, who's now suspended because of that altercation with who was it? Oh God, it was someone on the Lakers. I forgot his name. I forgot the situation already. But yeah, that's a big loss for them. So now they're not a starting point guard in Campazzo. They're down Jamal Murray. They don't have MPJ. Denver's looking like they're kind of on thin ice for who can really rely on for role players. And I mean, Jeff Green didn't even have that great of a game as well. Played 23 minutes, only scored 7 points. So great game for the Warriors. For Denver fans, I'd be nervous, but when you have Nikola Jokic, he can make this game different. Golden State's still a 7-point favorite tonight, and I expect them to pretty much win very comfortably tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of talked about all of it. For me, it was just a clear difference in talent for both teams. I mean, Denver's clearly – they've been missing Murray and Michael Porter pretty much the whole season, and they kind of weathered the storm to the 6th seed in the West. But, with the Warriors having a healthy Curry – well, not a healthy Curry, but having Curry and Clay back together on the court just in general, Curry should get healthier, as you mentioned. I mean, he drops, an inefficient 16 points off the bench, and they still score 123 as a team. So it's like, Wiggins had 16, Clay had 5 threes, which is all I need when you have, Poole's not going to drop 30 every game, but then maybe he scores 20 and 23, but then you have Curry step up a little bit more as he gets healthier. Clay can score 30 any given night. So it's like there's just too many weapons on Golden State from the stop, and Jokic can score 30, 35, but he can't beat Golden State all by himself. They're definitely going to need Aaron Gordon.
Yeah. You also mentioned just the depth of the Warriors. I mean, they have Blinka coming off the bench. Kuminga, we've talked about his rise. Andre Iguodala, he's pretty much been our key player. Bring him back after the 2015 Finals MVP, Andre Iguodala. Otto Porter Jr., he can hit some shots off the bench. Toscano, Lee, Peyton, Moses, this team is so deep, and there's so many consistent shooters on the Warriors. And you mentioned just the talent that we have, and then Steph Curry. It just looks like Denver's in for a lot of Denver needs a lot of help and a lot of consistent shooting if they really want to make this a really interesting series. But I agree with all your points there.
Yeah, maybe Denver steals one at home, or not. I don't know. I keep using steal, but maybe they take one at home, but I can't see this year's going past 5, maybe 4. But now we'll go into the Sunday games, and we'll start off with the blowout that was Miami over Atlanta. Trae Young, 8 points, 1 of 12 shooting. Duncan Robinson, 27 points. I think he was 8 of 9 from 3. Butler, 21. I mean, Hero, Adebayo, and Lowry combined, all 3 of them for 22. and they still scored 115. But I mean, more noteworthy was not just that, but holding Atlanta to 91 points when they normally score like 110 to 120. The Heat boasted one of the best defenses in the league all season, and that was very evident in this game one. And I'm sure Atlanta was also a little bit tired, from playing the two playing games too. So just all of that led to this blowout that was game one. Korea, what were your takeaways?
I mean, yeah, I know Trae Young is not going to shoot 1 of 12 every game and, only not even hit a single three. He tied it. He has a new career low in points in the playoff now with 8. It was just a very defensive game for Miami. I didn't get to watch that much of it, but from what I saw, Duncan Robinson off the bench was pretty much their key reason as to why they won so comfortably. He had 9 of 10 shots, 8 of 9 from 3. Duncan, it's obviously when you have a two-way duo of Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero coming off the bench, they can turn that game anyway. You see the starters not even making that much noise. I mean, Bam Adebayo, 6 points. And then Max Strus. You talk about Kyle Lowry dropping 10, and then Jimmy Butler, the lead contributor from the starters, only having 21, along with 16 from PJ Tucker. This Miami team is deep, and that's one of the key reasons why we all had them in this first round. With Tyler Hero being a 6th man of the year candidate, along with Duncan Robinson just, being able to shoot consistently from 3. So I think Atlanta has a lot going for them, but I know Trae Young is not going to shoot 1 of 12 every single night. But yeah, you mentioned how Miami best defensive team, and you see Atlanta, they're one of the best scoring teams in the country, only held to 91 points. So it just shows you that Miami, definitely came out to play hard defense against one of the best offenses in the National Basketball Association. But yeah, I think this is just, kind of settling down for Trae Young, not to get his ego boosted for being now known as the villain of not only New York, but the villain of Cleveland now. So yeah, I think this is just, a game for game for Trae Young to forget, move on to the next game, figure out what his shooting what angle is in Miami, how they adjust offensively for Atlanta. But Miami, obviously, a little more contribution from Bam Adebayo would definitely be huge for them. But, the way they play defense, it's not like they really need that much right now. But I know Trae Young's not going to shoot that bad every night. And the whole team shooting only 38% from the field. But, yeah, it just kind of showed you that Miami's defense is for real. But, they're only playing Atlanta, so we'll see how far they can get. But, yeah, pretty dominating game for Miami. And we'll see how game 2 goes tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll see if Trae and the whole team can bounce back. So now we'll go into the best game of the game ones. Boston coming away with the 1-point win over Brooklyn on the Jason Tatum spin layup at the buzzer beater. Durant, struggled for the most part for most of the game. I think he was 9 of 24 from the field, 23 points. Kyrie was not doing too much until the fourth quarter when he just took over 19 points, I believe, in the fourth quarter. He finished with 39. They got some solid bench performances from Dragic and Claxton combining for 27. But, I mean, it was for Boston. Tatum had 31, Horford Smart had 20, and Jaylen Brown had 23. So getting 4 guys to combine for 4 guys to have all of 20+. So that was, 94, I believe that would be together. So, they didn't get much from the bench. That would be something the monitors, if they can keep up. Because I think Tatum played like almost the entire game. So if the series goes like 7 games, maybe they wear down by the end because Brooklyn plays a little more of the bench. But at the same time, Brooklyn maybe takes that game if the last possession, Bruce Brown and Claxton both jumped like into the first row until that left Kyrie wide open down low, or Kyrie by himself down low. And so that's when Tatum took advantage of that size mismatch. But if they just close out and don't jump past him and he doesn't get that pass off, maybe Brooklyn, they could have easily taken that game. So definitely a game that could have gone either way. But it's probably a preview of what's to come for the rest of the series, of which should be a lot of fun and close games. I know, Korea, you had Brooklyn in 7. I had Boston in 6. So I feel like not much changes over this one game. Like we both expected it to be a close series. So and what were your takeaways?
Yeah, you mentioned one of the big things I want to talk about is just how deep the bench really went. For Brooklyn, they only brought in 4 guys, and you mentioned the key contributors Claxton and Dragic. And then for Boston, they only brought in Williams and then Peyton Pritchard for a little bit, and then they brought in Derek White. So very limited bench role playing. And you mentioned Tatum; he's played almost the whole entire game, only got 3 minutes of break, and he put up 31 points. So a lot of star power domination from the starters. That's pretty much what's going to be this tale of this series. The starters between Tatum, Brown, Horford, Smart for Boston, and then for Brooklyn, you have KD, Kyrie. Seth Curry got some good playing time, but obviously they're going to rely more on Dragic and Claxton, along with Andre Drummond. And yeah, this game was pretty much the game of the weekend. It was very exciting to see the final possession go by. You mentioned that final possession, Katie just looking like this, not even looking at the ball. Especially being ball and man. That man
looked like in 2K when your controller dies and you're just frozen.
Yeah, so that's obviously just a defensive mind gap right there. Katie not looking where Tatum's going. That allowed Tatum just drive to the basket, do that spin move on Kyrie to get the layup. Very exciting game. I want to talk about Kyrie's antics in this game. Obviously, with the and then the flip. That was just that was. I think that's going to be one of the bigger storylines. Is just how Kyrie emotions are really being just distributed in Boston. That can be a key contributor. But this game was really fun to watch. You mentioned pretty much everything I was going to say. You mentioned Kyrie with that electric fourth quarter. Kevin Durant only shooting 9 of 24 from the field. Not the greatest shooting day for him, but a lot of star power from that starting 5 for both teams. You mentioned Boston could get, if it goes to 7, they can get worn down. But luckily for them, they have a little bit of a while until game 2, which is not even until Wednesday. So they have today and tomorrow to West. But I knew this was going to be the most exciting series of the first round. And game 1 definitely did not disappoint. Back and forth, Kyrie versus the whole city of Boston, Massachusetts. Yeah, but game 2, I think, should be a little more telling of how the series is going to go. Maybe we'll see a lot more role-playing bench with both teams. Very limited bench for both teams, so maybe we'll see a little bit more adjustments to see how the flow of the game goes. But, just a lot of star power, a lot of good shooting. Both teams shot very well. The Nets shot better. The Nets shot 53% from the field and 45% to Boston's 47% from the field and 36% from behind the arc. So Brooklyn shot better, but the defense, we've always talked about Brooklyn's defense costing them games, and it cost them once again with KD's impeccable defensive position on the last play of the game. So I think this is going to keep going back and forth. Honestly, I could see Boston, and I think this series will definitely go to 7 games. I could see Boston winning it. I could see Brooklyn winning it. I want Brooklyn to win it. Just, I want to see that rematch with Milwaukee potentially in the first round. But this is going to be one of the best series that we've seen in a while out of the East, for sure.
Definitely in the first round at the very least. But as the series moves on, both teams have key players that are rumored to maybe come back. Ben Simmons for Brooklyn, Robert Williams for Boston. Both of them, there's rumors that they could be back like game 4, 5, 6. Assuming it goes that far. So that will be definitely something to watch as the series progresses. So now we will move on to probably the maybe ugliest game, I would say. Like all things considered, with both teams being healthy. Like Utah and Dallas was ugly, but Dallas didn't have Luka. But these two teams had basically. Obviously Lonzo's hurt, but he's been out for a while. So those two teams are fully healthy for what they've had recently, and I don't know how Chicago stayed in this game. DeMar was 6 of 25. Vucevic was 9 of 27, and Levine was 6 of 19. So all three of them struggled mightily, and they still were, in the game. It looked like Milwaukee was going to blow them out after the first quarter, but Chicago kind of weathered that storm. And, Giannis had 27 for Milwaukee, which is kind of an average game, I would say, for him, And then no one else. I mean, Milton at 11, Lopez at 18 with a couple of big M1s late in that fourth quarter, and then Holly at 15. So, I mean, both teams didn't, shoot the best. You could attribute it to good defense to some extent, but I think it was also just bad shooting by both teams. But I don't know. Milwaukee dominated, I feel like, the first quarter, and then Chicago just kind of kept it close the rest of the game. And every time Milwaukee kind of, it seemed like they might take a big lead, double digits, Chicago would kind of fight their way back. But you'd assume that DeMar Levine and Vucevic are going to shoot better moving forward. We both had Milwaukee in 5, I believe. Are you kind of so confident in that?
After yesterday, I am a little nervous. You mentioned just the ugliness of this game, very low scoring. You mentioned DeRozan, his shooting struggles, only went 6 of 25 from the field. Levine and Vucevic combined for 4 of 20 from the behind the arc, could not hit a single shot. I would be a little nervous if I'm Milwaukee, letting Chicago keep themselves in this game while this game was only a 7-point difference, but only shooting 32% from the field for Chicago, 18%. You got to at least win by at least double digits in that game. And for Milwaukee, it's an average day for Giannis, scoring 27, which I think his average is about 30 per game. So, yeah, average day for him. Middleton needs to shoot the ball better, 4 of 13, 1 of 7 behind the arc. And, Brook Lopez with those clutch and ones, and Drew Holiday. We've seen him more as a defensive-minded player, but still put up 15. I think what the main concern for Milwaukee is just, I think what they need to do is feed a lot more of Giannis inside. Let him go inside, because obviously he was shooting the ball from, around the perimeter and he was making some. But I think just letting him do his thing and driving in those and ones, I think that's going to be a bigger difference as to why Milwaukee may win in 5 or 6. You mentioned, this guy mentioned the 20 turnovers. It just looked a scrappy game. It was ugly. It was ugly to watch. I didn't like watching this game. Bad shooting day from Chicago. Couldn't hit a single shot to save their life. And not that much off the bench. Bobby Portis put up 6, 10, and 12, but when you're turning the ball over that much, it's just not going to be pretty. Milwaukee put up 42 points in the paint, so they were going inside, but I think it was just a game 1 struggle. Milwaukee, obviously, the turnovers are going to be reduced potentially for game 2, and for the Bulls, they just got to shoot better. This series may actually go to 6, which I did not intend for, but probably will now. Milwaukee, they may actually have a lot more to deal with if DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine can hit their shots throughout the game. But I think just more for Milwaukee is just limiting those turnovers, not playing scrappy basketball like they did yesterday, but still pull out the win. So, they were giving it to Chicago, but I think limiting those turnovers and, having a more letting the offense just run through Giannis, I think that's going to be the key for them in this series.
Yeah, I had a 5-leg parlay, and the under in this game was my last leg, and so this was easily under. The over-under was 229, so this was about like 30 to 40 points under, so that was a no sweat. That was a no sweat, so that was nice. But yeah, you would expect both teams to, at least reach 95 to 100, in game 2 and kind of bounce back scoring wise. But, I guess we'll find out. I think this game is Tuesday. Game 2?
No, this game 2 is on Wednesday.
Wednesday, okay. So Wednesday, so we will wait for that. And so now the final round 1 game, kind of a bit of a strange game where Phoenix dominated the Pelicans for like the first half, and it seemed like they're going to blow them out by 30 plus, and then the Pelicans scored 37 in the third quarter and slowly creep their way back in. I think they got it to like 6 or 7, but then Chris Paul wouldn't let the Pelicans get back. I think he scored 15 to 20 points in that fourth quarter. He had like a stretch where he scored like 11 in a row by himself in like a couple minutes. McCollum struggled shooting for the Pelicans. Ingram wasn't great himself, but Valanciunas had 25 rebounds, 18 points, so he had a huge game on the boards. And then, the Suns were kind of led by the trio that they've been led by the whole season. Chris Paul had 30, Booker 25, Ayton had 21. So all three of those guys were solid. Really fun atmosphere at Phoenix, coming off last year's run. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of impressive to see the Pelicans kind of battle back in that third quarter because they could have, just said, oh, we're coming off two wins. So they're probably a little bit tired, similar to Atlanta. And so they could have just kind of moved on to game two, but they didn't. They kind of fought their way back. So that was cool to see. But I don't know. I still feel like this might be a sweep, maybe 5. But what were your takeaways?
Yeah, I thought the series was going to go to 4 as well. I think it was going to be a clean sweep still. I still think it's going to be a clean sweep for Phoenix. But Chris Paul, we know what he's capable of. We've seen what he can do. We saw what he did last year for this team, leading them to the finals, coming up just a bit short. But yeah, I think this is the revenge tour for Chris Paul, and he showed it out last night, dropping 30, 10, and 7. That whole second half was just dominated by Chris Paul, especially later in the game. You mentioned he just went on a scoring run by himself for Phoenix. Just looked dominant pretty much the entire game. Devin Booker had a okay game, 8 of 19, 4 of 8 from behind the arc. The one thing I want to talk about is definitely Jonas Valanciunas. 25 boards. That's a very, very big number. He basically got almost half of their boards. And if you're matching up with him, DeAndre Ayton, he has to step up more. I think he has to be more of a defensive presence inside. Because obviously they have Mikal Bridges, right? Definitely one of their biggest stars defensively, pretty much the biggest star of the NBA, obviously Defensive Player of the Year candidate. But other than him, inside, like it just looked like, it was just bully ball inside. Giannis Valanciunas just tipping it up to himself, grabbing those offensive boards. So size-wise, it looks like that matchup is definitely going to be dominated by Valanciunas. Maybe in game 2, but in game 1, definitely dominated by Valanciunas. Yeah, it was definitely a fun atmosphere to watch. I turned it off at halftime because I was like, okay, they're up by a gajillion points. No way New Orleans is coming back. And I see the score. I'm like, oh, got to turn this game back on now. So I think Phoenix, just kind of letting them back into this game. Pretty clean game in terms of stat-wise. Not really that many turnovers. One of the bigger things, the points off those turnovers, though, is what I want to talk about. 21 points off of turnovers for New Orleans. Compared to 8 for Phoenix. So definitely something to really keep a note for game 2. But I still see Phoenix still sweeping this team. Brandon Ingram's still that dude. He's playing for money. But other than him, obviously Herbert Jones didn't even have that much of a game. Jackson Hayes didn't have that much of a game. Just dominated by McCollum shooting wise, but he only went 9 of 25. So he was missing a lot of his shots too. And then Valanciunas on the boards definitely dominated this game for New Orleans. But for the Pelicans, I still think this is a 4-game series for them. They'll have fun playing games 2, 3, and 4. But Phoenix are the defending champions out of the West for a reason, and I think they're gonna have a clean, easy sweep of this team. But I think if CJ McCollum can get really, really hot, they may make it interesting. But for now, I think for Phoenix, they just gotta, play better basketball behind the arc. I mean, yeah, Devin Booker shot 4 of 8 from the arc. I mean, still 35% is okay, not great, but it's still okay. But compared to New Orleans, who shot 39%, almost 40. So I still think this series is definitely going to be over in 4. But I think Phoenix will definitely have a bigger gap of victory and win 2. To fix some of those turnover struggles throughout that second half.
Yeah, they were a 10.5-point favorite, so that was quite the sweat for no matter what you had. And I'm sure people thought it was going to be easy in the first half, and then the third quarter and the fourth quarter. But yeah, I mean, I think I agree the Suns should handle the Pelicans easier, especially in game 2. And then we'll see if the Pelicans can take one of the 2 at home in games 3 or 4. But yeah, so that will do it for the NBA talk. On Wednesday's episode, we'll talk about Monday and Tuesday's games, as always, and then we'll continue that. So now we will jump into a little bit of MLB, and we'll start off with the Seattle Mariners taking 2 of 3 of the Houston Astros in their home opening series this past weekend. We'll start with Friday's home opener in front of almost 46,000 people. I wish I could have been there, but it looked electric in there. Mariners win 11-1 over Houston, coming off his struggle first outing against Minnesota, I believe, right? Marco Gonzalez goes 7, or was it Yeah, it was
No,
Minnesota.
it was Minnesota. It was
Did he have
Minnesota.
the home run to Bucks? I remember. Yeah.
Oh,
So Marco, a huge bounce back, 7 innings pitched, 1 run, and the 1 run he gave up was just on a good pitch that the batter, I forget who had the RBI, but he was inside and it broke his bat and it just barely went to center field. But other than that, he was dominant. 7 innings. And the run support was there too for Adam. It was mostly the new guys that stepped up. Adam Frazier, 4 hits, 4 RBIs. He had a triple. He came a home run short of the cycle. He had a triple, double, and a single. And then Eugenio Suarez, a 2-run home run. They already up 9-1. So that was like the cherry on top of the dominant win for the Mariners in Game 1 of the series. What were your takeaways from this opening game?
I mean, you pretty much said it for me. Marco was dealing on the mound, 7 innings, great outing for him to see at home in the season home opener. I was a little nervous for him, especially after that horrible loss in Minnesota, but good to see him bounce back. I knew the bats were going to come alive at some point. I said, just wait, be patient. The bats are going to come alive soon. Definitely came alive in that game. 11-1. You mentioned Frazier, home run away shy of the cycle. He had 4 hits. Eugenio Suarez with that 2-run homer. The offense just looked like it was being held back with bad weather games in Minnesota and Chicago with their outdoor stadiums with no retractable roof. So, I mean, that's why I just knew, I was like, just wait for them to come home. They'll have more, better bats, better field conditions. Definitely proved to be evident. Great offensive game for the Mariners. They just looked like they were being held back or just things weren't going their way in those first 2 series against the Twins and the White Sox. But then coming home against the division rival, had a little more, energy to themselves in that Friday game, especially being home in front of a sellout crowd. Energy was there. You mentioned Winker even talked about heading. It was just an electric atmosphere at T-Mobile Park on Friday night. So that was definitely just a game to watch if you're a Mariner fan. Fun game. Marco went 7 innings. Offense did amazing. Couldn't ask for more for a Mariners fan.
Yeah, basically all around offense, defense, pitching in that first game. They basically had it all. And then Saturday, it was quite the day and quite the evening in Seattle on Saturday because you had the Mariners, Sounders, and Kraken all hosting games at the exact same time. So you wouldn't want to be in that traffic during that time in Seattle. But you had vintage Justin Verlander, 8 shutout, 3 hits, 87 pitches. He probably could have easily pitched the 9th, but because it's early in the season, they just went to the bullpen for that last inning. Flexing was solid, 6 innings, 3 runs, just a couple of bad pitches that were, the difference. You had the double. You had, I think it was it Pena who had the double, and then the 2 long fly balls, moving the third and home for the first run, and then he had the 2-run home run on the 1 bad pitch. But, it was still a good bounce back, even though the Mariners lost. For Flexen, coming off a rough first outing himself, it's still a quality outing. It's 6 innings and 3 runs or less. So still good to see from him. I think Ty France had 2 hits and Frazier had 1 hit, but that was definitely. But when Verlander's at his best, he's dominant. And in his first start, he went 5 shutout against the Angels and now 8 shutout against the Mariners. So clearly he's back to his old self. So was there anything else you wanted to add to that game?
Pretty much just Verlander doing Verlander things. He's been Cy Young before. We've seen him pitch very well. At age 39, he's still doing his thing. 8 innings. I knew it was going to be a hard challenge for this team. We always struggle against Verlander. His velocity is just unmatched. Still at 39, so I knew it was going to be a challenge to get some hits and some runs off of Justin Verlander. But I'm okay with losing that close game like that. A little run support would have definitely helped. Especially with Chris Flexen on the mound, looking decent. He had a little bit of struggle at some point, but he still went pretty far in that game. So yeah, it was just the dominance of Verlander got to us. I knew it was going to be hard to rack some runs on him, but especially in his last outing against the Angels, who have definitely have a stacked lineup as well. Went 5 innings, only allowed 1 run. So yeah, Verlander, he does Verlander thing. So I wasn't too disappointed, but at the same time, I would have liked to see, maybe get 1 or 2 on the board.
Yeah, but then we moved to the rubber match on Sunday, and it was good to see the offense quickly bounce back, winning 7-2 to take the series 2 of 3 against the Astros. Matt Brash is a really weird line where he went 5 1/3, no hit, but walked 6 and hit a batter. And then he gives up the hit to Altuve and home run to Brantley. And I think he walked Bregman. So then before it spiraled too far down, they took him out, which was good. But still a really, really good start for him, all things considered. He got, I think, like 4 double plays, which is why he was pretty efficient despite having all the walks and the hit batter. He was still pretty efficient for the most part. But this is back-to-back solid 5+ inning starts from him, which as your number 5 starter who's making his MLB debut, you can't really ask for much more, especially against 2 really good lineups in the White Sox and the Astros. And then you had the offensive explosion in the 5th or 6th inning for the Mariners, where they scored the 5 runs. Julio Rodriguez had his first RBI, and then Ty France capped it off with his 3-run home run. It was the third time through the lineup where they got to Urquidy. I believe, he was the guy who started for Houston. So it's good to see that. Kalanick had 2 hits. He's starting to turn around a little bit these past few games, it seems like. But yeah, just a fun weekend of home opener for the Mariners to get back to 5-5, ahead of a pretty favorable homestand coming up against 3 against Texas, 3 against Kansas City, 2 teams that are struggling. So you hope that the Mariners can take at least 2 of 3 from both of those series. I believe the Angels currently sit atop the AL West, and they have a big. Can you still hear me? My computer's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a big series between Houston and the Angels coming up early this week, and so that should be a good one. Do you have anything else to add about the series?
Yeah, you pretty much mentioned everything I was gonna say in terms of yesterday's game. Sunny afternoon.
I was gonna talk about Munoz too, setting the franchise record with 9 straight strikeouts. He got Altuve, who's tough to strike out. So it's a franchise record, 9 straight hitters he struck out. Brantley ended the next at bat with the single, but Brantley is a tough out, and Brantley born in Bellevue. I've always liked Brantley. He wasn't part of the Astros World Series team, so he's one of the few Astros players that I do like. But yeah, I mean, the Mariners bullpen looks like it did last year. I mean, despite Sadler unfortunately being out for the season, you basically have Munoz taking over his role from last year. Seawald looks good, second rider. Castillo looks pretty good. So yeah, that top 4 to 5 for the bullpen still looks really good. They've for the most part they've had strong starting pitching for the most part. Marco and Flexen weren't great their first time out, but just kind of overall grand scheme of things, the starting pitcher's been really good. It's just really this team will go as far as the offense takes them is kind of where I'm at. And you mentioned the home crowd definitely helped them this past weekend. And hopefully as we get more into May and June, there won't be as much bad weather in those Midwest games against Minnesota and Chicago. But yes, this team's definitely kind of where I was kind of hoping they'd be at this point in the season. Yeah.
Well, all I'm gonna say, 5-5 against two great AL Central teams and a division leader in the Houston Astros in the AL West. I am gonna take that and run to the bank to start our first 10 games. I can't complain about that. The pitching's doing well. The offense is starting to get their groove back after playing in those bad weather games. Now playing against a Texas team who struggles with pitching. You mentioned the 3 starters: John Gray, ERA of 7 almost. Dunning, ERA of 5. And then Hearn, ERA of 4. So I think Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is going to be fun for Mariner fans to see all the offense come out. So am I complaining? Of course not. You pretty much topped everything I was going to talk about in terms of Munoz to Brash's great day on Sunday, to the offense. First 10 games, I can't complain as a Mariners fan. Let's just keep it going as we head into tomorrow's game. Mariners have a good day off today, but they've earned it. Now tomorrow face a Texas team that has a lot of offensive power in Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, but that pitching staff and rotation is just struggling. And Rangers, not really great right now. Only 2-7 on the year. So it'll be interesting to see. Also, breaking news just right now. Luka has been officially ruled out for Game 2. We already talked about it, but now it's official. Mav Stars out for tonight's game against Utah.
Gotcha. Yeah, and you got Robbie Ray making his debut, his Seattle debut tomorrow, Tuesday. But yeah, you mentioned the Rangers rotation and pitching. I mean, even their bullpen's not good either. So you hope that coming off the 18 runs they scored in the 2 wins, they can carry that into maybe even a sweep of Texas. I mean, Texas just lost 3 or 4, I believe, to the Angels. So baseball, you can't win every game, even if you're the better team. So you'll take 2 out of 3 either way. But so now we'll kind of get into a little bit more just overall MLB. I have a couple teams I was going to talk about, and you can kind of talk about a player team that you want to talk about. Excuse the train. So the first is the Marlins taking 3 or 4 from the Phillies. The Phillies are kind of slumping a little bit after their hot start, but we've talked about, I think it was in our Marlins preview show, about their pitching and how good it is, and we kind of saw that showcased here with Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, and Eliezer Hernandez, both in the 3 wins from the Marlins, pretty much dominated the Phillies. The Phillies scored 7 runs combined in the 3 games that those 3 pitchers played, and then they took 1, so they lost 3 or 4. But yeah, this Marlins team's kind of scrappy with decent offense. They brought in Avisail Garcia this offseason, and Jorge Soler, so a couple of big bats, and then their pitching's always been pretty good, dating back to Jose Fernandez, rest in peace, the days of him. But yeah, I don't know if you were able to kind of catch any of the box scores or any of the series, but I mean the Phillies, they're like Schwarber had that leadoff home run the opening day, and Phillies was so excited. He's kind of been slumping since then. Castellanos, Real Muto. I mean Harper's been good, but they have a lot of talent. The Phillies in the lineup, but Zach Wheeler got crushed by the Marlins in one of these games too, and their bullpen's kind of been underwhelming as well. So. Obviously, it's still early in the season, but kind of just takeaways that we're going over from this past weekend. Did you have anything to add to that?
I mean, that kind of leads into the next team I was going to talk about, the Colorado Rockies. We thought this team was going to be, struggling to win games. They opened their first season they win the series against the Dodgers in their first series. They beat Texas in that 2-game series on the road, and then they split the series against a pretty decent Chicago team. And now they're playing Philly, who does not have a strong bullpen, and Colorado right now, number 1 bullpen so far in the league. So it's kind of interesting to see how Colorado, maybe it's early, like the Mariners back in that 2019 season when they started out 13-2 and then went on to, finish near dead last in the division. But pretty interesting to see how Colorado, playing hard, now pretty much have a favorable matchup against Philly at home starting today. And you mentioned Philly, offensively, they look like they've been just depleted after that Miami series, and coming in against Colorado, who has a very strong bullpen. I think Colorado could potentially even sweep this series, depending on how their starting pitching goes and how reliant they are on their bullpen. But offensively, Colorado, they're actually pretty decent offensively. They put up a good amount of runs this weekend against Chicago at home, and now they play Philly at home. So, obviously, Coors Field is definitely a home run friendly place, home run atmosphere. And with starting pitching going well over there, it'll be interesting to see how Philly does. So Colorado, definitely a team to really look out for right now as they head into this 3-game series at home against the Philly, who just, as you mentioned, came off a really bad weekend against the Marlins down in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockies have kind of always had good offense. It's been their pitching, but yeah, you mentioned their bullpen's been pretty good. I think they've been led by closer Daniel Bard. And then, of course, you have the big Chris Bryant addition this offseason. He's been solid. Connor Joe's been really good. Recently had a leadoff spot for them. So, yeah, CJ Cron's been good too. So, definitely will be a team to watch out for if this is just an early season, type of thing, or if they can kind of continue it.
Uh, Breaking news: we've found out who won Defensive Player of the Year, and it's Marcus Smart. Marcus Smart officially won Defensive Player of the Year, becoming the first guard to win it since Gary Payton in 1996. Ari, quick thoughts?
I mean, yeah, I think, I feel like the usual guys we have in these awards weren't there. Like normally you have Gobert, Draymond Green, guys like that as a finalist. So it's kind of, I guess you could say, refreshing, kind of to see new names, new faces. I mean, we've always kind of known guys like Smart to be good defenders, but not necessarily in the mix for the award. So good for him. I mean, the Celtics are one of the scrappiest defensive teams in the league. And he is kind of the leader, for them defensively. So definitely well deserved on that regard. Is everything being announced today? Do you know, or is it?
I don't think so. I think postseason one. I think MVP is after. I think the season already ends.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Right now. It's live on TNT right now, and I just got the award for it. But I just want to say quick shout out to Marcus Smart. Obviously, being a guard, it's really hard to do. Be a scrappy player like that. And also, I want to give a shout out to Mikal Bridges. He stepped up his game really well. I've talked about how this man is just changing the game defensively. I'm not going to say he was a snub, but obviously I would have picked him. But, I definitely would give respect to Marcus Smart as well. But, yeah, shout out to Marcus Smart. Let's see if they can win game 2 on Wednesday.
Yep, for sure. So just the one more series I wanted to touch on. The Baltimore Orioles taking 2-3 from the New York Yankees. It was quite the surprise. The Orioles won 2-1, 11 innings in the game one, where Arlis Chapman walked in the winning run in the 11th inning. After the previous series against Toronto, they were up 3-0, and he walked the bases loaded when they took him out for Michael King, who got the strikeout double play. Like, hold on, but I mean, this has been Chapman's MO his whole career. Is strikeout or bust, pretty much. Where when he's on, he's on. When he's off, he's off. So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. One quick thing I also want to mention: the Atlanta Braves look like they're struggling right now in terms of their pitching, which is something that we kind of were more relying on for Atlanta last year with guys like Charlie Moore and Max Fried. That's something interesting to note about. And now they've got to play the hottest, very much the best lineup in baseball, the Dodgers. And Freddie Freeman, it's not in Atlanta, but it's that rivalry, between Acuna and that whole Braves roster now playing against the pretty much the best team in baseball, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then on the mound tonight is Mr. Perfect Game himself, Clayton Kershaw. So the Braves right now, they're not in a great position right now. Hopefully they can turn it around soon, but their pitching is not really up to the level that we thought they would be. And now they're playing against the best offense in baseball, combined with one of the best starting rotations. It's not going to be looking good for Atlanta right now. So, but yeah, you mentioned Baltimore. Shout out to Baltimore taking 2 out of 3. I saw a funny tweet on Twitter from Orioles Sports Network, their TV network, talking about how must be a tough weekend for Yankees fans, and the Lakers are out of the playoffs too. I thought that was pretty funny to see. But shout out to the Orioles, man. I mean, you talked about Aroldis Chapman's difficulties walking in the game-winning run. It's either walk or bust. And during that game, he was having trouble hearing whoever's behind the plate. I forgot who was behind the plate in that game, but there was just a lot of just miscommunication. The Yankees just, they looked like they struggled all weekend. And the Orioles, they looked like, the hometown favorites, the guys who could pull off the upset. It was like a 15-2 in a home game, something like that. So it's pretty fun to see. So definitely shout out to Baltimore for getting that big series win at home.
Yeah, I mean, for the Yankees, they got some good starts from Severino and Nestor Cortez. Their pitching was good, but for all the money that they're paying their bats, I mean, Rizzo, Josh Donaldson, Gleyber Torres, and Joey Gallo are all hitting either just above 200 or below. So definitely something to keep an eye on, as like even last year, their offense was really stagnant at times. So yeah, we'll see how that, if they can pick it up and everything. So we've gone for a little bit over an hour now, so we're just gonna close out real quick. So we're going to get a little bit more in depth into the NFL draft talk, I think, on Wednesday and Friday's episodes, so later this week. But we just wanted to kind of touch on just kind of like storylines that we're watching for. I believe it's 10 days from today, I believe, is the start of round one. I think the 28th, I believe. So so it's a week from Thursday, I believe that would be, is the first round. It's kind of an interesting year because normally quarterbacks kind of dominate the top 1 to 5, but that's not the case this year. Like, some people don't even have quarterbacks going in the top 10. Some people have the Lions taking Blake Wilson number 2 overall, so it's definitely a super kind of wide open, first round where a lot of different things can happen between trades, kind of surprise picks. I mean, even the Jaguars at number 1. I feel like the consensus is taking Aiden Hutchinson, the Michigan edge, I believe, edge. But I mean, some people have him going offensive line. Some have the Georgia Trayvon Walker, who's kind of seen his stock rise from the combine. Some people have him going number 1. So, even as early as number 1 overall, you don't truly know what's going to happen. Just kind of going through the top 10, you have the Jaguars, Lions at 2, Texans at 3, Jets at 4, the Giants at 5 and 7, with the Panthers at 6, Falcons at 8, Seahawks at 9, and the Jets back at 10. So kind of looking, Jaguars aren't going quarterback. The Lions could go quarterback. Maybe they wait. Texans probably not. You have the Giants 2 top 7 picks. Maybe if there's something they really want, they trade up into the top 3, but probably not. Cause I feel like there's not like one guy that stands out. So they probably go like offensive line, and then maybe defense with that 5 and 7. Panthers could go quarterback. It's kind of interesting because, like, I'm sure Matt Rule wants to keep his job. But then you look at someone like Malik Willis, who most project is more of a project, kind of long term, versus someone maybe like Kenny Pickett, who's kind of maybe some say is more ready right away. But then this mock I see on CBS has them going offensive line, so they could go in many different directions. Of course, this is the first NFL draft that's interesting for the Seahawks, and basically since they drafted Russell Wilson, like, the first draft has been interesting. They could go quarterback, they could go defense, they could go offensive line, they could trade back. So it's like there's so many different ways that they can go, I guess you could say. I don't know if you want to touch on the Seahawks or something else, but I guess kind of what are you kind of watching for just based off the rumors, reports, just all of that?
Yeah, for time's sake, I'm just going to talk about the Seahawks real quick. I've seen so many projections for the Seahawks team at 9. I've seen people talk about taking a QB like Malik Willis at first, like back when the Russell Wilson trade happened. I saw people talking about potentially a Malik Willis. But then I've seen so many mock drafts talking about maybe drafting offensive lineman Evan Neal if he falls down to 9. I've seen cornerback because Seahawks definitely need a lot of cornerback help. I've seen Derek Stingley's name mentioned. If Sauce Gardner falls down to 9, if the Jets don't snag him at I think at 5 or whatever they're at, I think at 4. Yeah, so this for the Seahawks, it's going to be very interesting. I think they may go. I hope they go cornerback first, but I think they may go offensive tackle, which I won't be depressed about as well. But definitely, it's kind of weird. You think quarterbacks would be dominating, like the first round, but people are really questioning like whether a quarterback may even go in the top 10 at this point. And the only two that are really being named about are Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis, who I've seen Kenny Pickett linked to either a Carolina. I've seen the Steelers potentially maybe trade up to get like Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett. We've seen Carolina also linked with those two. But also now Carolina's linked to Baker Mayfield, so maybe Carolina may not even get a quarterback in the draft. So, but sticking with Seattle, I think Seattle is definitely going to probably go not special offensive utility player, more, like maybe offensive tackle, cornerback, hopefully. But you mentioned this, the storylines for this draft are kind of up in the air. You don't even know who's going to go number 1 overall right now, because the Jags may not even take Aiden Hutchinson. They may take someone else, and Aiden Hutchinson may fall down to 2 to the Lions, who may not even take him because Trayvon Walker's stock is rising right now. So this will definitely be, I think the storylines will maybe finalize as the draft gets a lot closer. But for now, it's kind of up in the air on who's going number one. But we can say that I know a lot of people have linked potentially Kayvon Thibodeau to Texas, to the Texans, maybe getting a good defensive and the Jadeveon Clowney replacement down there in Houston. It'll be a fun draft. Definitely a lot of storylines as we head closer to the draft.
Yeah, like definitely edges are dominating the top, 3 to 4. It seems like we could see 3 of the top 4 or 5 picks are edge rushers. But coming off the Rams Super Bowl win with their defense, kind of makes sense going that route if you're not sold on the quarterback. But I think that will do it for this episode. As I said before, kind of Wednesday and Friday we'll dive a little bit more in depth into our projections and just certain players. And I think next week we'll kind of do some more of a mock drafts kind of thing. But yeah, I mean that will be kind of in our future episodes as we head into the NFL draft next week, which is crazy to say, but we're just around the corner. And then before you know it, it's mini camp, training camp, and we're back into NFL action. So we'll look forward to that on Wednesday. Thank you everyone for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to leave a like under the video and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment if you're watching for future topics that you want us to talk about. And as always, we're AKP Sports Talk YT on Instagram if you want to DM us about ideas that you want us to talk about, questions and whatnot. And we'll catch you all on Wednesday. Thank you all for watching.